Hey everyone, it's Kevin Gilligan. Welcome to an all-new Flamecast, where we celebrate some of the artists, creators, some of the wonderful people that help make FlameCon such a wonderful experience. We've brought this series back for a new year as we get closer to FlameCon, and I'm excited to have with us today someone who has both been at FlameCon, has helped make FlameCon a better experience. I am so glad to welcome Jay Edidin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Jay, for those few people that are not aware of who you are, please introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do.
I am a writer, editor, and podcaster. I'm probably best known as one of the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast about the ins, outs, retcons, clones, and time travel of comics' greatest superhero soap opera. I also write comics, journalism, and stuff kind of all over the map, and edit the same batch of stuff, although I've been doing less of both lately because I am also currently a graduate student.
So you're busy is
A
what
little bit, yeah.
If you don't mind, what are you studying right now? What is your grad studies focused on?
I'm about a third of the way to an MA in human rights.
Wow, I feel like I am doing nothing. But I am very inspired by you, Jay, and your mind. So you are very inspiring. Speaking of,
Thanks.
who or what inspires you?
Oh my gosh, so much, so many things. Right now and lately and always, I feel like the first person who I need to name there is my wife T, who is, among other things, on the FlameCon or running the FlameCon programming committee this year, but who is pretty much endlessly creative and brilliant, and the other half of whatever bizarre ship we're sailing here. Oh gosh, in terms of on a large scale, I think it's hard for me to name individual influences because one of the things that inspires me most is variety, is the breadth of the art that's out there and the people that are out there making it and consuming it.
Yeah, these are weird and terrible, but also at times wonderful times. And I feel like it's because of a lot of our fellow creatives that are out there that are making um, they're making these works that are helping us get through this terrible, crazy time that
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
living in.
absolutely.
Um, and I feel like we're all in this boat together, and we're having to rely on each other, um, especially our own sort of community. Um, who is part of your community? Like, where have you met them? Like, how do you connect with that community?
My community is extremely geographically scattered, and one of the advantages I feel like I had going into lockdown a couple of years ago was that for me the internet is very much my home turf, and I'm used to long distance and not in person, very close relationships. So I have my community is one that's got a lot of sort of little pockets scattered around through different locations and different eras. I'm still very my closest friend is someone I've known since junior high school, and she and her husband and their daughter are very much sort of part of the Portland comics and geek community, which I'm still really connected to, even though I haven't lived there in about 5 years. Um, Also have sort of a nascent community here in New York, which is where I've been much more briefly, and a couple years of that have been locked down. So I haven't built as much in person, and I'm starting to sort of grow similar, threads around school. But a lot of my New York community is FlameCon based, and a lot of my larger community is really based in folks who I know through comics and comics conventions, because that's the world I've been working and living in since I was about 23.
I, I know for me, um, talking about queer community, I always had a distance from it. I'm bisexual. I never felt, because the queer community tends to cater towards mostly gay cis white people, and that's typically how it, that's what's catered. And it wasn't until I found the organization Geeks Out and found this sort of geeky community and this group of marginalized people within a marginalized people, because there is, geeks, nerds, there's that stigma with it. But um there was this community of celebrating these differences and finding such a rich tapestry of people that were not just sort of the club scene that is typically what's depicted when talking about queer community.
God, yes. I'm very lucky in that, again, I was in Portland for a long time, where I feel like the geek and especially the comics community skews very queer already. So there was never really a sense of being outside of it because of that. But I remember coming to FlameCon for the first time, and it just being this revelatory experience of not only a good convention, but this is a community space that can exist. This is something I can be part of. And I imagine it feels like, how there's like the storybook equivalent of how it's supposed to feel when you go to summer camp. Yes. And everything is brilliant, and it's this like perfect microcosm, and you form these intense friendships because everything just sort of fits together for the first time. Yeah, that's what FlameCon felt like. And summer camp did not.
No, sadly, no. And one of the great things has been, being part of it and helping to grow it each year. Mm-hmm. And as I said at the top, your presence and your influence has been so welcome. I mean, beyond just having Jay and Miles explain the X-Men as part of the programming slate at FlameCon, but also having your influence, because you were at least for 1 year. I don't know time. I don't know. You've always been there for as long as, as much as I'm concerned. But, you helped to start an initiative of creating like micro mentorship program, and everything goes into uplifting and building our community. And that having other people's perspectives, I'm just rambling here in terms of just complimenting you and how much I respect you and in what you do. So, and excited what you have to bring in the future once you have your grad studies done and what the future remains for you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having time to do things again at some point ever, maybe.
Well, in that rare free time that you have, what are you getting down and nerdy with right now? What are you consuming in pop culture?
So T and I just we finally gave in and subscribed to HBO Max, and we did it for the reason that everyone's been doing it, which is for the gay pirates.
Right.
And so we obviously watched all the way through Our Flag Means Death, and right now we're midway through Harley Quinn.
Oh, nice.
And loving it very much. T watches a lot more than I do, so I tend to catch the sort of periphery of what shows she's watching. So now I'm getting like 5-minute snippets of the Gilded Age via her.
Nice.
But Harley Quinn is sort of the central show that we've been watching the last few days.
It took me a bit to warm up to Harley Quinn. I was a little like reticent. I wasn't sure, and then I've warmed up to it.
Oh man, it had me at the bat fucking jokes like that. It was completely sold at that point.
And we just started with gay pirates with Our Flag Means Death. But we have not started Gilded Age yet, so that is next on our to-do list.
I kind of a little bit hate Downton Abbey, so I'm mostly avoiding it. It's very pretty, and I understand the appeal of it, and it just feels like wealth porn in ways that make me deeply and socialistly uncomfortable.
Fair, very fair, very fair. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. For those who are unaware, you can find Jay by exploring your podcast, which is at 367 episodes.
It is, yeah. It's a little terrifying. And speaking of podcasts, I forgot to mention the stuff I'm doing now. I just started working on something I'm incredibly excited about, which is I'm doing some writing for a podcast called The Imagined Neighborhood, which is a kids podcast about emotional intelligence and learning. And it's incredibly fun and incredibly lovely and just a phenomenal group of people to be in a writer's room with.
That's awesome. That is at www.imagineneighborhood.org. That's where you can find that. For Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, that is X, the letter X, plain, PLAIN, thexmen.com.
Although if you miss that and you type in Explain the X-Men, it'll also just redirect to it.
Well, there you go. It's the wonders of the internet. And then right now you are doing a special campaign.
Yes, through all of April, we are raising money for Equality Florida. Miles and I are both from Florida. If you are listening to this, you are likely already familiar with the absolutely bullshit legislation that recently passed there. We feel pretty strongly that while the general sentiment of it's Florida, fuck it, is understandable, there are a lot of queer and trans kids there who we would like to see survive to move to better states. And so we're raising money for Equality Florida. We are, thanks to some incredibly generous donors, able to match up to the first $6,500 of donations. So if you go to explainthexmen.com/equality, you can find out more info about that. A lot of cool rewards that we're doing, some of which are virtual, some of which involve me knitting you hats.
Who doesn't need a hat, right?
I mean, I'm doing it right at the right time of year too, as it's warming up. But
yeah, you know,
I can even show one off right now, actually, because I'm working on it as we speak.
Ooh! So if you're listening to this from our podcast, you'll have to tune into the video when it gets posted on our YouTube page. So that's where you can also see some of the links as well. You can find out more about everything about Jay through your Linktree, which is also you can find on your social media. Not Lasers on Twitter, and for the podcast Explain the X-Men.
And I am a Twitter monster. Twitter is usually the best place to find me.
Nice. But you also have a couple Tumblrs as well.
I do. Tumblr is sort of a reblog space for me for the most part. I deeply love the bizarre trash fire community that is Tumblr. There's just a dedication to intense feralness there that I appreciate and identify closely with.
Fair. So that's Postcards from Space, and also at Explain the X-Men on Tumblr. Jay, it has been a delight, and I look forward to seeing what the future brings, and I hope that things are better soon and safer for us to all congregate, or we'll find a nice open field and just have a great picnic together.
Weather's going there. And
Yeah,
as always, it's great to talk to you and to hear your voice and see your face. Take care. Stay
have a
safe.
great one, and stay tuned for the next Flamecast. And until then, we're out.